Good evening once again. You're welcome to our fourth podcast. And sorry, we have kept you waiting, I think, for the last 15 minutes. Today, like you requested, we have none other than the celebrated grandfather of Lego technology in Uganda. And I think it would be very unchristian of me if I limited you to grandfathering on Lego technology. Because as far as we know, and many of us know, technology, policy, you started this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are discussing navigating the void. Can Ugandans safely trade crypto in a regulatory vacuum? But before we go to that, I would love to introduce our distinguished and celebrated panelists. And for our friends on Twitter, we are live. Like I was saying, today is a beautiful day. We are hosting none other than the celebrated grandfather of Lego technology in Uganda, Advocate Robert Chirunda. Given opportunity to describe Advocate Robert Chirunda, it would be really very, very difficult for me because Robert Chirunda is described in a manner not different from the 12 blind men who were given an elephant. One touched the tail and says, it's an animal with a very small tail. And another one said, it's, an animal with a big bum. And so I will try to describe Robert in a few words I understand. Advocate Robert Chirunda is a founding partner of Chirunda and Company Advocates. Advocate Robert Chirunda is the gentleman behind Center for Law, Ethics, and Emerging Technologies. Why we call him the grandfather of Lego technology in Uganda is because Advocate Robert Chirunda has always been a thought leader in advancing technology in this country. He was the brainchild of the first initiatives of cryptocurrency in this country. Now you know the reason why he was the better candidate to have. He was a brainchild behind Bitcoin locally here. And as far as I remember, he's also celebrated for starting a number of initiatives, including but not limited to being a member of the National Task Force on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. These are very complex things, Advocate Chirunda. But also, Advocate Chirunda is an authority in these areas. He holds a Master's of Laws degree from the University of Cape, Western Cape. He holds a Master of Laws, specifically a Master of Laws in Law, Science, and Technology from the celebrated Stanford University. Which better candidate would we have on this beautiful day? Robert, that's the description I have for you. I can add on, is a loving family man. He also describes himself as a foodist. That one, I am yet to learn. Um, Robert, like I said, everybody describes you in his own manner. That's my description. Who is Robert Gironda?
Wow. Thank you very much, Tony, for having me. It's very, very humbling to join you. And first of all, very well done to you and your entire team on putting together this podcast. It's a great podcast. I've listened to the previous episodes. Brilliant stuff. I think that these are much needed conversations, and the time is now. I am very shy to describe myself. I remember the first interview I ever did after LDC. That was the first question. Tell us about yourself. And I remember my answer very clearly. I remember the date, I remember the time, and I remember my answer was, I don't know how to describe myself, but let me try. But I think you've been far more generous than I deserve. Maybe just to speak very briefly about the work that I've done in this space. I got involved in the 4IR space initially through Bitcoin, through a client, a dear friend of mine.
One quick one there before
Yes.
you go further.
Yes.
When you say 4IR
Yes.
space,
Yes.
many listeners out there, they actually don't get it.
Okay.
What's 4IR space?
So the fourth industrial revolution. We are now at, historically there have been four major revolutions that have changed the world. The first revolution was the creation of the printing press, which democratized information. Now, the printing press, because it democratized information, changed exactly how people learned, and with that came many revolutions. The second revolution was the steam engine, and that really led to manufacturing and the rise of the factory and industry as we know it. That, for me, is the rise of capitalism. The third revolution was the democratization of information, the internet. And that from the mid 60s to today changed the way that the world works. The fourth revolution is really the bridging between man and machine, technology and the individual. And you have, depending on who you speak to, 7 to 9 technologies that have risen to the surface: blockchain, artificial intelligence, 5G, big data, robotics, drones, quad computing. Some people will add a few other aspects, depending on who you talk to. And the rise of the 4R, as we call it, really comes out of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, who's the head of the World Economic Forum, wrote a book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, where he explained the fusion of technology and man. Whereas the printing press changed how we learn, the steam engine changed how we work, the internet changed how we gather information and process it. If you look at Google's mission statement, it was to organize the world's data. Simple, period. And Google now rules the internet. And then now, 4IR really changes how we interact, not just with technology, but how we bridge the gap between devices and the individual.
Wow.
So this is really, and the way it all happened for me is very fresh, fascinating. A client walks into my office and says, "A dear friend, Noah Balesam, who is an authority in this stuff, by the way, far better than me even, walks in and says, we would like to register a company." I said, "Well, who is we?" And he mentioned the other 5 suspects. And they were all guys I know. I said, "But I know this bunch of people. What's this about?" And the company was called Bitcoin Trading and Exchange Company, short form Bitreco. I said, "Okay, what's this about?" So he said, "Let me tell you about Bitcoin." This was, I had heard of Bitcoin around 2012, but I had lost money in Forex trading in 2011, and we were still bleeding from the loss of money in Forex. So I wasn't really prepared to go into trading. I had made a decision one day I would go back into trading, but I felt that I did not know enough to start risking money. Also, we had learned many lessons from the Forex trading space. So he breaks down Bitcoin for me, and it gives me 7 reasons why I should pay attention. I then made a decision that to advise meaningfully, I had to understand the technology at the subterranean level. So I became a participant in the company and we learned firsthand. We then discovered between 2014 and 2017 that there were really two main things happening. The first is that, like with everything in this country, Ugandans will smell money quickly. Bitcoin trading was happening, it was happening underground and informally. There was no single exchange operating in the country at the time. So we decided to, the second thing was that there were many scams. The scams hadn't even intensified, but they were just about, I think we'd heard of one or two, and we realized this is going to be a problem. So the guys that they still remain very dear friends and business partners today. They're really my band of brothers. We decided then in February of 2018 to host a conference, just go mainstream with the whole thing. And that conference, interestingly, the story that is seldom ever told is that my dear brother Kwame Rugunda raised a question, and he convened us to a meeting and said, let's have a meeting to discuss one question. How do we change Africa? How do we build a new Africa? That was the discussion. But we had started trading Bitcoin informally in 2015. 2 years later, Kwame said, how do we change Africa? And we said, let's start with what we know, where we are, what we're doing. Bitreco started the very first indigenous exchange. And it was informal. We didn't have an office, we didn't have infrastructure, we didn't have all the rails all the fancy stuff you hear today. Nothing. But I actually believe that the grandfather of Bitcoin in this country is a little known gentleman called Gimei Nagimes. In 2010, because Bitcoin goes live January 2009. In 2010, David had a mining rig in his home. When I went to see him and I said, what is this? He said, that's a mining rig. I said, mining rig for what? He says, I'm mining crypto. He was mining Bitcoin in 2010. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, these are the guys I was dealing with then. And so we have this 2-hour discussion about how to change Africa. And Kwame is a Pan-Africanist. He's as good as they get. And at the end of which he says, where do we start? I said, I have an idea. Let's throw a conference. Let's make it big. He said, don't tell me how to throw a conference. I know how to do that. So we decided, let's call it the Africa Blockchain Conference. And all we have to do is say it's the biggest conference on the continent. This was at the height of the crypto craze like you've never seen. And we organized the conference. We set a date that day. We decided, let's go. In May of 2018, when that conference happened, it was, in fact, the biggest conference on the continent. We gathered 834 guests.
That is
from 32 countries across the continent, even abroad. And the flagship speaker at the time was Changpeng Zhao, the former CEO of Binance. This was before all the Binance troubles. Now, Bitcoin had gone mainstream. Crypto had gone mainstream. Blockchain became a buzzword. That's how blockchain became a buzzword in everyone's. Because the journey between February and May taught us very many things. We had to engage stakeholders, regulators, and you had to start from what is blockchain? Is blockchain the same as Bitcoin? The basics. I will never forget a meeting in one of the regulators we went to, I will not mention where. And after a 2-hour session, it was Noah, Balesambu, Kwame, and myself. We had just gone, this gentleman was very kind, a very, very wonderful gentleman, one of the regulators in town. Organized his entire department, maybe 30 people, and said, talk to us about blockchain. And we explained, Noah and Kwame had a wonderful PowerPoint. And after 2 hours of a presentation and Q&A, a lady puts up her hand and says, I have a question. In very simple terms, what is blockchain? You can imagine 2 hours in, my contribution to that conversation was to bring a dummy's version of the explanation. So I used the land registry to explain blockchain. And that was that. So that is really where we started. Now, something significant happened. And this is where I think the story really changes for me. we asked ourselves a question: what do you get out of a conference like that when you organize it? We pitched, and I really, I don't think I've ever given him my version of credit publicly, and I would like to do that now, if you let me. I want to appreciate the Honorable Frank Tumwebaze. He was Minister for ICT at the time. So we sold him the idea and said, why don't you set up a national task force on blockchain? And he agreed. But then, a few days to the event, we thought, why do one technology if you can do all of them? Kenya had just released their strategy on blockchain and AI. One of the biggest visionaries in the region, as you would know, is the Ambassador Bitangendemo, Professor Bitangendemo. And he was one of our keynote speakers in 2018.
Yeah.
And he had led the Kenyan initiative. Now, when the Honorable Tumwebaze agreed, he made the announcement at the conference. Oh, that was it for us. And the president then decided he wanted to launch the task force himself. That task force then wrote the national strategy on 4IR, blockchain, AI, big data, robotics, and the whole shebang, the whole suite of technologies. That is how I got involved. And from then, I just never looked back. In 2020, we set up the Center for Emerging Technologies at Makerere, whose mandate is really to merge three worlds: policy, industry, and the academy. Because policymakers were not writing rules for these things. Industry, in terms of the market, people needed to know how do you dance within the legal boundaries on these issues. And yet, the academy, I've been teaching law for the last 18 years now at Makerere, 17 years now. And it troubles me that many of the things that are happening now, we don't teach directly at the law school. So the question therefore was, how do you engender research? How do you train tomorrow's lawyers to understand what at the time were tomorrow's problems? Today, these are today's problems. If you think about blockchain, you've hosted talks on AI. That's another explosive world. That was the goal. And I've been doing that ever since.
Wow.
And so then I decided to go and deepen my knowledge at Stanford, as you mentioned. And I reached there and I found that we were maybe, in 2023 when I went to Stanford, the things that seemed to be cutting edge for me, people in Silicon Valley had thought about and done 20 years before, 23 years before. I met lawyers who, and some of them have become dear friends. And I was saying, but this, and I will never forget the gentleman who said to me, I don't understand why everyone is raving on and on about AI. We were advising on that stuff 20 years ago. I was at the law school where Sam Bankman-Fried, a name that is now famous in crypto circles, sadly for the wrong reason, Sam Bankman-Fried grew up in the Stanford campus. Both of his parents are professors of law at Stanford Law School. So I was right in the heart of it. Silicon Valley Bank, which went bust in 2022, I believe, was based on Sand Hill Road, which is really on the other side of the Stanford campus. I was in the heart of it. It was fascinating to learn and to see what's the world really about. And Tony, I think it's more people know that there is a whole world out there. And sitting in Kampala and saying that's a scam, this doesn't work, that it doesn't help. The world will not wait. The world has moved on. And that's why I think that these are important conversations. And then you come back home and you find the issues we deal with here. Wow. That's a very short summary of my journey. It's been far more intense than that. They've been good days, they've been better days. But we soldier on.
Wow. You know, it's so amazing. Robert, you are in Makerere. You have a good job. You are a top state lawyer, a want-to-go-to lawyer. You know, you have finished your master's from the University of Western Cape in South Africa. You are a celebrated lawyer, and what drives you to now say, wait a minute, I have this master's, I'm doing a PhD, but I need to go to San Francisco. I need to go to Mountain View. I need to go to Silicon Valley. I need to go to Stanford. Go through these Alps down there and go and do a master's in law, science, and technology. Before we go to the blockchain bit of it, people, we need to know, because we seem to be in a different world. You seem to be seeing things we are not seeing. What drives you there?
You know, that's an excellent question, Tony. And I'll tell you two lessons I've learned from friends of mine that were very, very impactful. A friend of mine called Terence Ayebare, he lives in the UK now. Met a lovely English woman, Ugandan woman in English skin. One of the best Muslim ladies I've ever met. And so he settled in England. In 2005, Terence gave me a book. He gifted me a book. He was leaving to go and study at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music. And at the back of that book, he wrote a sentence that has stayed with me all these 20 years. He said, "The true prophet lives in tomorrow." Those words changed my life. The second person is Mr. Joshua Mgemerere, who's the former deputy IGG. One day we met at an office of another really senior colleague, and it was one of those unplanned meetings. And I don't remember what sparked it off. I think we're talking about names. And he says, "Robert, always take the long-term view to life." Those words stayed with me. How do they relate with how I end up in the valley? When you live in Africa, it is sad, but it is true that we live in a paradoxical continent. We have the greatest potential on earth. In every sense, we have the youngest population, the biggest numbers, the most fertile land, the richest. Africa has almost $10 trillion worth of natural resources. Uganda has one of the youngest populations in the world. I've done my PhD in natural resources, and I always ask people, what's the one inexhaustible natural resource on earth that will never be exhausted as long as man lives? And they'll tell me, I said, no. The one natural resource that you can never exhaust is people. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that the hospitals, one of the top 3 hospitals with the highest birth rate, if not the highest, it's definitely top 3 in the world, is a few kilometers from here? Mulago Hospital. Birth rate, top 3 in the world.
Wow.
Now, when you live in a continent like this, it also comes with significant disadvantage. You go to a country like the US, full of prosperity. Systems work sometimes. But you realize that you're a black man in America. And sometimes you're going to work twice as hard for half as much. When I started my practice 13 years ago, there were big players in the market. And you have to ask yourself, what is that one thing that makes me different? And you'll have to keep searching until you find it. I have experimented on many fields of the law. I love the law. And there's a number of things I can do with reasonable comfort. But I found technology very fascinating because it is always changing, hard to regulate accurately, and yet it democratizes power, almost like the law. You see, you and I, because we are lawyers, there are things we cannot stand because we know the law. When a police officer stops you and says certain things, you can talk back because you know the law. Technology is like that. When you know how to use it and how it can affect you, what advantages you can leverage, then you gain power and access to resources that you won't find easily. But I could see that the more I looked into 4IR, the more I realized that the questions, the legal questions of tomorrow would be far more complex than we have answers for. If you look at the crypto world, for instance, it is really the financial world as we understand it today, but on steroids. Now, the legal questions in that world fascinate me so much that I figured I need to equip myself better. I have learned that the best leaders never stop learning. Bill Gates is one of the richest men in the world, and he is a voracious reader. Every time I meet people I admire, one of the questions I like to ask them is, what are you reading? And you'd be amazed the diversity of knowledge you gather that way. I think we've had this discussion a year before.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
When I walked into your office, I went straight for the bookshelf. I'm just that curious. So for me, it was about how do I, one, future-proof my practice, two, prepare for the complex questions of tomorrow, three, because whether I look at these things as an individual or as a practicing lawyer or as a father or as a teacher of law, you cannot escape technology. I am the generation that saved our dissertations on floppy diskettes. I teach students who have never seen a floppy. You see, when I went to law school, the biggest search engine in the world was Yahoo. Yahoo is now really history. Even Bing can't compare with Google. I know. I have argued that, first of all, look at the smartphone. 2008 is 17 short years ago. There was no smartphone anywhere in the world before iPhone generation 1. The iPhone has changed the world. But I will go so far as to predict that cell phones as we know them will either radically change and become see-through phones, very, very slim, or they will cease to exist in 15 to 20 years. That is a short time. It sounds like a long time, but 20 years is a very short time.
Wow.
Now, to prepare for that time, I had to get the skills and knowledge and to understand where is the world going. Because you see, as my very dear friend David Nagimesi likes to say, 4IR gave us one advantage. It redeemed time. In the sense that it was the first time in living history or in world history where everyone, superpower and third world country, were all on the starting line. Nobody could claim to have figured it out. The US is grappling with the same questions on blockchain as we are. China is grappling with the same questions on AI as Uganda. Canada is grappling the same questions on robotics as Uganda. Nobody can say we have the perfect set of rules.
Wow.
Therein lies the opportunity, especially for lawyers. And that is what I wanted to prepare for. That's why I went there.
I just love that. I just love that. You know, the fact that you are having a thriving practice and you decide to move all those miles. I have been to Stanford, I have been in Silicon Valley, and I really know how expensive that place is. It's not a cheap place. So I think for me, before even we go discussing crypto, I really wanted the listener out there to get the inspiration to because they have these questions. Why would somebody have a PhD, is having a master's, is having a thriving practice, and is moving to Stanford to start a master's degree? Thank you very much, Robert. Now back to the question of the day. In 2019, Bank of Uganda makes a very, very destabilizing statement, because that is at the peak when you people had thrown the ball and people in the pitch. We have just had a big conference and everybody is, excited. Then Bank of Uganda comes up with a assessment, says you are on your own. We do not recognize crypto as a legal tender. We do not advise anybody to trade. Neither do we license anybody to trade. 2020, I think, they go ahead and amend the Anti-Laundering Act, I think, to include virtual assets which captured crypto. 2023, I think it is the Council Silva Kayondo, drags Bank of Uganda to court, says, wait a minute.
22.
2022. 2023, we have a ruling. Honorable Justice Sekana says, no, I am buttressing the position of Bank of Uganda. And here comes the question. In practice, the listeners listening to you are actually trading in crypto.
Yes.
But the regulator is saying, we do not know you. The question is, in your opinion, as a person who has been in this journey, how best can somebody trade crypto? Because clearly we are on our own. We are not going to ask you to ask the regulator because that is a long toll. But at least we'll ask you, how can we trade safely? Because we are trading. Like you said, Ugandans, we love the money. When you say money is in vanilla, we go there. When you say money is in coffee, we run there. Tomorrow when you sell us Hassel avocados, we go there. So we are very enterprising. Would you want you to talk to us on how best can somebody trade in crypto?
So Tony, let's take a step back. And that's a fantastic question. But let's take a step back and first place the events that you've broken down in context.
Perfect.
As I said, world over, nobody has figured out a perfect regime. And there's three reasons why. Number one, at least so far as I can tell, more than three, but let's take three for brevity. One, the Bitcoin blockchain went live on the evening of the world's worst financial crisis ever. Blockchain was solving a trust deficit that law had failed to solve. The banks in New York that went belly up and led to that crisis were regulated banks. Yet they failed. That proved that government-based regulation is not the answer to human appetite for money. That context is important. Number two, as I said earlier, technology is hard to regulate with precision. So regulators must ask, what are we solving for? And it was clear to them that although Bitcoin had emerged as a medium of exchange, a store of value, no central bank at the time was prepared to say this is legal tender. Now, what's a currency? It's a unit of account, a medium of exchange, a store of value. That is money. We in the industry were arguing that Bitcoin does all three. It's a unit of account. It stores value. You can use it as a medium of exchange. You can pay for commodities with Bitcoin. In fact, if you look at the history of money, something as simple as a cowrie share was once money. Right? Now, there was a major problem. Crypto is very volatile, was and still is extremely volatile. It can go up and down. So you had a debate, is it a currency? Is it an asset? Is it an asset class which regulates capital markets? Or is it a currency which regulates in the banking sector? And the debate was not easy to resolve. Now, to be fair, regulators take their time. As I said to a dear friend at Bank of Uganda recently, it took them 10 years to regulate mobile money. The industry will not wait. Right? So that's where the confusion came from, because every time a regulator says, that I recognize, they release a trust into the market that can suck in the public. And as far as they were concerned, the ones who were speaking to were saying it's very early days. We don't understand this thing. Let's stay away from it. Why did central bank take the approach they took in 2019? Ministry of Finance as well. They were saying, look, our view is to protect the public. Whether you're trading currencies or you're trading crypto assets, any kind of trading, or you're trading stocks and bonds, whatever you're trading, you need to have adequate information before you trade. I consider myself moderately educated, yet I lost a lot of money in forex trading. And you know what the issue was? The issue was we did not know enough to engage in the forex market. Not because forex was a scam, we just didn't have enough information. And when we learned that, many of us pulled back and said, we'll go back. If we ever go back, we'll do so with good information. So that's one. The second thing is that I sincerely believe that the central bank made a huge mistake in 2022 when they cut off national payment service providers from touching crypto, which led to the Silver Kayondo decision.
Yes, yeah.
Why? Because we had worked very hard between 2018 and 2022 to mainstream this conversation. A Harvard professor one time said, Louis Brandeis said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. When you come and say, don't touch crypto, but people are making money, all they do is go underground. Noah Balesam likes to say that it was Reagan, I think, who said, let them thrive, watch them, let them thrive, tax them, then regulate. Let them thrive, tax them,
and then regulate.
So the idea that...
One quick one there.
Yes.
I think for us, we start this way. Lock them.
Yes. Which stifles growth.
Well,
now the result is that the Justice Sekana decision actually said trading cryptocurrencies are illegal in Uganda. That was a very unfortunate step. Because for something to be illegal, it must be outlawed by law. I do not know one section in Uganda's laws that says trading a cryptocurrency is illegal. And believe me, I have looked. On the other hand, I know provisions of Ugandan law that I can point to and say, these many words here basically mean cryptocurrency. I can point to those provisions in the National Payment Systems Act. I can point to the provisions in the Electronic Transactions Act. If you read the definition of what an original is, of what cryptographic encryption is, the nature of cryptographic encryption in the Electronic Transactions Act, it's basically describing a blockchain. If you read what a payment system is, how a payment system is defined in the NPS Act, it's basically describing a blockchain or a crypto asset. Now, if you go to the other statutes in the financial sector, you will find that if a country out there recognizes any currency as legal tender, then Uganda would recognize that currency as
legal tender.
Legal tender. There has been at least one country to recognize Bitcoin as legal. They have since retracted that position. But then you would have argued that for the time that they were recognizing it, that was legal tender.
Yeah.
But there's another issue. You look at what's happening globally. From South Africa to the UK to at least 2/3 of the central banks in the world, they're experimenting with cryptocurrencies in one shape, form, or other. Bank of Uganda now has a CBDC project, a central bank digital currency project, to explore what can happen in that context. If you say, don't touch that stuff, then say, we have a working group, you're working in opposite directions.
I hear you.
At the same time.
I hear you.
Because what you should be doing, which is what we said to CMA in 2018 when Binance came here, we said to CMA, the rules don't exist. You come and we give you back-end access. Okay? You see what a cryptocurrency exchange actually actually does.
Yeah.
Let us write the rules together, then you enforce them. The CEO of CMA at the time was a gentleman called Keith Kalijira. He wrote back to us. I wrote the letter. He wrote back to us and said, "You're right. Our laws don't cover cryptocurrency. If we ever need a law, we'll call you." It was the saddest day of my life in the blockchain world. I advised the clients and I said, "Go ahead, trade, do whatever you want. When they come to stop you, call me." Why? Because you don't have an express provision of the law saying trading cryptocurrency, trading crypto assets is illegal. Now, I think that the misnomer also depends when you focus too much on crypto assets as cryptocurrencies. There are assets that are not currencies, but they are cryptographic in nature. Non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Nobody has ever said an NFT is a currency or a cryptocurrency, but it's a crypto asset. And people spent billions of money on this stuff. The crypto world is now in the trillions of dollars. Surely it can't be that people can pack $1 trillion in a bogus asset class. Surely. And some of those people, by the way, are some of the world's leading investment banks: Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. The CEO of JP Morgan began on the other side. He said, "This stuff is nonsense, it won't work." Today, his bank is that we seldom talk about that's important. Basel. The Bank for International Settlement in Basel is where most of the regulation that we see on anti-money laundering, on terrorist financing comes from. When the Bank for is basically cut off the financial system, the global financial system. You cannot use SWIFT if you're on the blacklist. If you're on the gray list, you're on your way to the blacklist. That's how money moves.
Wow.
Let me give you a real example for our viewers and listeners. A trader in Chikubo will not be able to pay for a container using a bank to send money to China if Uganda gets on the blacklist.
Wow.
That's the risk. If the trader in Chikubo cannot import shoes to sell to you and me, cannot import suits for you and me to buy, cannot import pens for us to use to write, what does the country look like? It means UIA cannot collect taxes. It means finance doesn't have the money to build roads and pay salaries for teachers, however little they are. You have a crisis. So we worked closely with the people who were at the FIA at the time, and I will always give Mr. Sidney Asubo credit for this, to make sure that that amendment passed and Uganda got off the grey list. But you see, all the amendment does is it says every person, every virtual asset service provider must register with the Financial Intelligence Authority. If you're going to register them, why not just regulate them? My view as a practitioner is that regulators shy away from capturing these assets in the legal framework because they are complex. Also, we need to rethink our model of regulation. Today, financial sector regulation regulates the institution. You come and say, we are Bank of Uganda, we regulate banks. What do you really do? You come and say, what's the size of your board? What are the competencies of the board? Do you meet 4 times a year? You're regulating the institution.
Exactly.
You're not regulating the business of banking. Otherwise, if we're doing that, ask yourself, why would there be closed banks? Why would banks fail in Uganda? Now, to be fair to the central bank, banks fail everywhere. It is commerce. It's just the way it is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The point is that the markets that are advancing elsewhere, look at the US market. One of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world is Coinbase, fully regulated in the US, trading in billions of dollars. And what they have done is to say crypto assets are not currencies, but we will regulate them under the Securities and Exchange Commission. So there is that old Howey test in capital markets. Is it a security or not? And then you go, and what really happened here is what we were trying to say to CMA back then. What we were saying is, we know you don't understand the asset class. Let us work together to figure it out. Then write rules. That's what Coinbase has done in the US and all the other players. Now, if you look at the Sam Bankman-Fried, and of course, the argument on the other side is, then why was there FTX? But you see, go and look at the indictment in the FTX situation. Every crime Sam Bankman-Fried was charged with was on the criminal laws of that country before there was crypto. Put another way, you worry too much about, oh, these people, they want to scam the masses, we must shut them down. Listen, I don't have to use the crypto asset to scam the masses. Telex Free had nothing to do with crypto. Ugandans lost over $40 million to Telex Free. Nobody did anything about it. So the idea that you slam an asset class because it seems to be doing harm, when what you've done is shy away from understanding it so you can regulate it better, I think is troubling. But to answer your question, how do you then trade in that context? A few hints. One, let us stop thinking of regulation only in terms of acts of parliament. The easiest and commonest form of regulation is something called a contract. We don't think of contracts as regulation, but a contract is a set of rules governing your relationship with me, my relationship with you. That contract is a legal document. I would say that contract is a law concerning the things it contains between you and me. What's the first contract you're going to enter if you're in the crypto world? The terms of use on a website. So before you go to Binance, OKX, KubitX, Coinbase, whoever your broker is, whichever exchange you use, read the terms of use. Number two, one of the pieces I didn't mention earlier in the beginning was, we worked together with my brothers, Kwame, Noah, and the bunch to set up the Blockchain Association of Uganda. One of the things we worked aggressively on was to make sure that we told the public, if you don't understand it, don't trade it. If you don't understand it, don't invest in it. Yeah. Don't. I don't understand chemistry. I can't invest in a pharmaceutical plant. I don't get it. It doesn't mean that people in pharmaceuticals don't make money. They do, because they understand it. So what do? Learn, get sufficient information, understand what you are doing, read the terms of use, then trade. Number three, there are very, very easy ways to spot a scam. If you come to me today and you say to me, I have an idea, it's going to make us $1 billion shillings. I'll give you an example, Tony, from my legal practice. The year is 2010. A classmate of mine calls me, lovely, amazing lady, and says, I have a client. He has a big deal. Go Bitegera. Please come. Our offices are in walking distance of each other, so I walk to her office, and she says, I have this client. He is in Indonesia. He has bank guarantees. He wants to discount them, turn a bank guarantee into cash. You must have come across.
Of course, yes.
I have a bank guarantee of $1 billion.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it to the bank. They'll discount it for 80%.
Yeah.
And give me $800 million.
Yeah.
I can unlock this money and give it to you to do projects and investments and whatnot. And all I need you to do is put down 400K, I will unlock for you $800 million. I went and met with a certain pastor in Uganda who was at the heart of a huge energy project. This gentleman is a pastor, but he gave me the answer to every scam I've ever encountered. He said, spoke in Uganda, he said, oli bw'agamba nti asobola otuwa miliyoni 800 ayagala emitwalo 4 mugamba ateekemu ezize bw'anaafuna 800 atoleko zonna z'ayagala atuwe ezisigaddewo.
I love that.
You understand?
I love that.
He said, it was such a simple solution. He said, look, you have access to $800 million. You want me to put down 400,000?
That's average 1.2 billion.
No, about 1.5 billion.
1.5 bar, yes.
For you to give me 800 million, which is
800 million US dollars.
Yes. Is what? $1 trillion shillings?
More than that. Simple
math. It's simple math. You put down the 400K. You take 200 million. I'll take 600. It's okay. I have the project. It was a geothermal project. You can then come and invest. I'll even give you shares in my project. The Arab abused us. He said, you don't understand business. I quickly told my colleague, that's a scam. If I come to you promising you heaven on earth, I come to you saying, for me to unlock this heaven on earth, first put down X amount of money. Just say to me, gwe ziteekewo, mpola nziteekewo. Bwe zinajja tolako ezo mpe balance. Wow. It doesn't have to be a crypto asset. It can be land. We have a whole land division of the High Court. Why? Because of land problems. By the way, I think it has the highest backlog at the High Court. Why? Because a good number of those cases are people who were scammed on land. It does not have to be a crypto asset. And that was our argument from the beginning. So we said, tell the people to equip themselves. People would come to me and say, I remember a Friday evening, I was going home, and a very, very dear friend of mine said to me, I need your help. She called me, someone I can never say no to. She called me and said, a friend of mine wants to invest 400 million shillings in crypto. I think he is being scammed. Please meet with him. I am begging you, make time tomorrow, meet with him. I said, like I said,
yeah.
She who shall not be named, I can never say no to this day. I said, but you know that she said, I know. I said, okay, 10 a.m. tomorrow. We met there used to be a coffee shop down below Housing Finance. It's been demolished now. Just before what is now Chris or something. I forgot what it was called. And I asked this gentleman, who's your broker? And he tells me, he says, I have a friend who knows the broker. I said, okay. What platform are they using? I was just testing what rails are they using.
Yeah.
Are they on Ethereum? Are they on the Bitcoin blockchain? Are they? So I asked him very simple questions. What is your on ramp? What's your off ramp? I don't know what other questions I asked, but these were the most basic things. And he said, I don't know. My guy knows. I told him, can I do you a favor? He said, yes. I said, take that 400 million shillings. Go and buy land, split plots, sell them. You will make 3 times that money in 2 years. Because I'm sure you have land. He said, I have land. I told him, go into land. He must have thought, I don't understand money, I am a fool. About 6 or 7 months later, I am walking through the commercial court. I see him. He stands up and he sort of wants to walk to me. So I walk to him and say, Mukulu, how are you? I think we've met. He says, yes, we met at a coffee shop. I said, you're the guy who wanted to invest in. What are you doing here? He says, But we are trying to recover our money. I told him, Mukulu, siva bulungi. My point being, before you go into, because the crypto world is highly profitable, it's very high risk. The simplest way to explain it is, think about the financial sector today. You have asset classes, you have government securities, bonds, treasury bills, you have capital markets, you have private bonds, corporate bonds, for instance, you have shares, you have currency itself, fixed deposit accounts. You have all these investment categories in the financial sector today. Take that, multiply it by 10 in terms of speed and profit. Add a few more complex structures. That's the crypto world.
Wow.
The rules that apply here, the logic is the same. It's just much faster, more intense, more capital intensive. The logic is the same. Wow. So the same way that someone has to come and tell you, when you invest 500,000 in a government bond, you lend money to government of Uganda. Government of Uganda promises to pay you an interest. That interest is called a coupon. It's the same way you need to understand the basics of crypto before you trade in it. The first layer of regulation is contract. Write it down. Understand what the contract says. And the first contract you're going to deal with if you're going to trade yourself is terms of use. Read them. When Binance was coming into the Ugandan market, Binance had to write rules for the Ugandan market. I know this because I wrote them. We took the global terms of use and said, do these things apply in Uganda? No. And we changed what couldn't apply and we inserted what could apply. So anyone trading on Binance.ug was trading based on rules written for Uganda. If you go and you jump onto an exchange and you don't read the rules and the exchange goes belly up, such as FTX did, then your next... Actually, what you should do even before you do that, if you're going to invest serious money, this is going to sound cocky and selfish, but please call a lawyer, preferably one who knows what you're talking about. You see? Wow. Such that you can go through it and understand. If you look at the most sophisticated investors in this country, go to the Uganda Securities Exchange, pull up the listed companies, and look for who the largest investors are. Individual investors. They usually become chairman of the board. That's how Alan Shoni became chairman of EABL. That's how Dr. Byamgisha became chairman of I think it was Uganda Clays or Baroda. I forget which one. That's how. And what will you see with all of them? These are sophisticated investors who hire the best lawyers money can buy or are themselves lawyers. The culture, Uganda is, and this is a good thing about Uganda, Uganda is becoming a very sophisticated market in terms of the way people are investing. We need to be honest and tell them, you can spend $1,000 on a lawyer to retain them, or you can pay them $10,000 to fix the problem. Your call.
Wow.
So I would say, to summarize the answer to your question, how do we trade? Number one, don't trade things you don't understand. Number two, read the contract. Read the terms of use. Write it down, whoever you're dealing with. Number three, preferably call a lawyer before you start. That for me would be the very short summary.
I think for me, I want to thank you really very much for explicitly dissecting the safety bit of it. Now, I have somebody who has just sent in a message. He says, please, tusaba omusomesa, I will translate it for the non-English speakers. Tusaba omusomesa atuyigirize kye bayita cryptocurrency kyeki oluzungu lungi. So there you are. We want you to teach us what is cryptocurrency.
What is a cryptocurrency? Wow. Let me try and take the simplest approach to this. I'm going to assume that anyone watching or listening has received an email before or a WhatsApp message. If I pick up my phone and I send you a WhatsApp message that has 14 random characters, I just type XY215BX21014 Z, and I send it to you. It might mean nothing to you. But those 14 random characters, if they were encrypted, if they were stored on a mechanism that where they can never be changed, suddenly acquire value, because they are the only 14 random characters in the world that say what they say.
Yeah.
They acquire value because to get them, you paid me. Now, those 14 random characters can be generated in different ways. The secure platform on which they are moving is what is called a blockchain. It is regarded as immutable because what happens is that every computer in the world that is plugged onto this network, every time I generate, imagine we had 1 million phones, and if I send a message to you as Tony, the other 999,999 phones receive the exact same message, and one saying, this message has gone from Robert to Tony. Tony now owns the message. It means that I can never send the same message to the person next to me, because that's now your message.
Exactly.
That is what is called solving the double spend problem. If I send you an email today, I can forward it to somebody else.
Exactly.
That is double spend. If I cannot send it again, it is gone forever. That transaction is stored on a mechanism where I can never lie to the world that I still own that message.
Once it is gone,
it's
gone.
That's blockchain.
Wow.
So the blockchain is a ledger where each of these entries is registered in an unchangeable manner. Why unchangeable? Because it would take so much computing power to change it. I would have to basically hack each of the 1 million phones, or at least 51% of them, to change that message. It's just too complicated, it's too expensive, requires too much computing power, which requires too much electricity. It's not worth the cost. A cryptocurrency is a mechanism designed to do exactly that. To communicate the value of money in a digital form in a way that cannot be changed, because it sits on a network called blockchain. And there are different networks there are different blockchain networks. For instance, the Ethereum chain is different from the Bitcoin chain. The way that the message is generated can differ from proof of work to proof of stake. In other words, I come and ask, is it true Tony sent a message to Robert saying, and we all solve that problem. The more of us that solve the problem, we get rewarded for solving them. Yes, it's true, 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 yes, it's true. That is what in the crypto world is called the consensus mechanism.
Wow.
And because now 1 million people agree that Tony sent Robert that message has value. The source of that message is a chain, which has many messages like that. And because that message is called a Bitcoin, the Bitcoin becomes a currency, a means of exchanging value. The message is the unit. So I have sent you a message saying, now you have 5,000 shillings worth of
this.
The commonest cryptocurrency, the commonest type of cryptocurrency in Uganda that everyone uses every day is mobile money. The only difference and why it's not a cryptocurrency is that mobile money is not on the blockchain. But what is mobile money? It's an SMS.
Exactly.
It's nothing more than I send you an SMS and say, I have given you 10,000 shillings. Via SMS, that's different from what's entering your inbox.
It's just a faith that you have sent me some figures written in a message that this is 1 million shillings. And when I see it, I believe it.
The agent whom you go to withdraw that money isn't sitting with money I gave them. No. They are sitting with money somebody else gave them. But because you have this message that everyone believes is true because MTN said so, they give you that money. That is crypto.
Wow.
The difference, as I said, is MTN controls this source. none of us other than MTN can verify, because if MTN created a mechanism for us to verify that it is true Tony sent Robert money without being able to control that platform, MTN would have taken mobile money, put it on the blockchain, which we can all see. That's the other thing. I asked about Bank of Uganda. I said, who of you in this room can tell me exactly how much float MTN has ever created from the day it was created? It started mobile money. A lady fell back and said, my goodness. Because nobody other than MTN has that answer. On the other hand, the Bitcoin blockchain will account for every single Bitcoin transaction in history. From transaction number 1, in which there was a message, someone actually wrote, coded in words to basically leave their signature there. Geeks, they can be stupid like that. To today, the other day there was 15 billion stolen in a crypto wallet. And the US Fed followed the money and froze it. Binance was hacked a few years ago. And Changpeng Zhao came and did an event, said, it is true, we were hacked. Depositors' money is safe. We have traced the money. All other exchanges have come to us and said they will not liquidate that crypto. The guys who hacked Binance will never be able to spend that money because everybody can see it. It is there in that wallet. That's the difference. That if you know what tools to use and where to look, you can trace any transaction, any cryptocurrency transaction that has ever been created today. You cannot do that with mobile money.
Wow. I think that for me takes me to the basic question similar to that which this gentleman has asked. Umusomesa twagala tusomese crypto. I want to pick it from the basics, and that's where my question is going to come from, Robert. Money is confidence.
Yes.
That's what you taught me at law school. Yes. That you, because I believe that you have the capacity
yes.
to pay back my 2,000 shillings
yes.
or my 10,000 shillings, you will tell me, get 10,000 shillings and give it to Adam.
Yes.
And I will get the 10,000, give it to Adam on confidence yes. that you have the capacity to pay me back.
Correct.
A person who is trading in crypto, yes. Where is the backing of the currency? What confidence does he get? I'm talking from a layman's perspective. In the banking perspective, if it is mobile money, I'm saying MTN is a big thing. I know that MTN is value for money. You know, it has a big value. If they told me that if a message has come from MTN, it's 5 million shillings, then it's true. Let me give it to Liz. It is okay. I am sure that my money will come. Colleagues, the money will come. Now,
in the crypto
world.
So let's take a step back, Tony. I would modify what you've said slightly.
Perfect.
We don't trust MTN because MTN said so.
Exactly.
No. We trust MTN because Bank of Uganda said you should trust MTN. I was checking to see if I had any money on me.
I can keep it for you.
No. I trust you, but not with this one. This is a 50,000 shilling note.
Exactly.
But really all it is card paper. The value this note has, the value this piece of paper has, printed from outside Uganda, it has the value that the central bank has said it has.
True.
That's it. That's where all confidence comes from. But if you ask the central bank, where do you get the confidence to say, this piece of paper here should be able to allow me to buy 50 boxes of water?
Yeah.
They will tell you, we went and saw how everyone is spending in Nakasero market, and we decided that this piece of paper should be able to buy 50 boxes of tomatoes. The value of a currency is determined by factors such as inflation, the consumer price index. Inflation, by the way, I believe is a tax on stupidity. It's an indirect tax. Bank of Uganda says, you know what? You all should lose 10% of your value. They say inflation is now at 10%. If you question these principles deeper, you'll be shocked. But I am going somewhere. One of the drivers of value in this currency here, this Ugandan currency here, is simply this: the consumer price index, the price at which consumers are buying goods across the markets in Kampala. What does that mean, technically, extrapolated? It means that the true regulator of value in the economy is the free market. Bank of Uganda is an intermediary in the free market. So, if we agree at that level, then let's also agree that the cryptocurrency world works on two fundamentals, and they are not different from the way the central bank works. In the place of a central bank, you have a cryptocurrency exchange, which says, Tony has said he has $1,000. He wants a digital version of $1,000, so he gets 1,000 USDT, which is a digital version of the US dollar, one-to-one pegged to the dollar. He wants to move that to Robert in exchange for a certain digital asset that is more valuable than USDT called Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We will facilitate. What Binance, OKX, Coinbase does is not different from what the Uganda Securities Exchange does. The only differences are two: scale and speed. If you go to USE settles a transaction. The settlement time last time I checked was T+3. Trading day plus 3 days. It takes 3 full days for them to reconcile, which is get shares from you, get money from me, pass my money to you, give me your shares, settle. They need 3 days. In the crypto world, it's instant. That's the difference.
Wow.
But where does trust, which is the larger question, come from? Trust comes from the free market. Which is why when there's a major event, markets go up. Bitcoin, I saw Bitcoin when it was under $1,000. The day Bitcoin hit $1,000, it was a massive event. We were in China in 2019. At the time, in November 2019, the speculation was Bitcoin will hit $20,000 before the end of the year. My goodness, it seemed impossible. Bitcoin was trading at $14,000, $15,000. 20,000? Impossible. December, I think around 14th, smashed through resistance, 20,000. Gained a new support. Why? The reason that value goes up or down is because of the number of people who are saying, yes, I want Bitcoin, I will wait. Yes, I have Bitcoin, I won't panic. There is no difference in those people and the people in the Kasero market who are saying, tomatoes are now that expensive. I will wait for when they go cheaper. Season is back. Tomatoes are many. Let me buy. You talked about vanilla earlier. There was a time when vanilla was a booming commodity.
Of course.
Then suddenly, whoop, you cannot blame the arbitrator there. Right? So that's the thing about where value comes from. Value is in the free market, and the creators of the Bitcoin blockchain intended to have such genuine free market behavior that they were saying the banks, which were agents of trust, let us down because they were greedy.
Yeah.
The regulators, who are the custodians of trust, because they tell us who to trust by licensing the bank, let us down because on their watch these banks failed. Remove the banks, trade directly. That was it.
Wow. Navigating the void, can Ugandans safely trade in cryptocurrency? I think for me, the take home number one is you must learn how cryptocurrency works. That's the first step.
Correct.
The regulator will not help you that much if you do not know how the system works.
Correct.
And so we must invest in that. I think for me, that is super. And that takes me to the next question, not very far away from the topic. Where do you see cryptocurrency as a person who has been on this journey for now, close to almost 10 years, by the way? 2019, yeah, because we're in 2025, you're four years shy.
Actually, That's interesting you should mention because I think we started in 2015, so maybe we've hit 20. We're hitting 10 years.
10 years, yes. They are
Say
about
8 to 10 years.
yeah, 10 years. So where do you see crypto in the next 10 years? Cryptocurrency.
Number one, I would say that crypto will go mainstream. In the places where it hasn't yet gone, it will go mainstream. Number two, I think that we will see far more maturity than we are seeing now. And by that I mean that because you see, you started from individuals,
Yeah,
now you have institutions.
yeah.
I think governments will trade crypto. It's inevitable because they will want to tax crypto.
Wow.
So I think governments will trade crypto. I think crypto will go mainstream. I am not too sure about central bank digital currencies. I think the fad has gone down now. I think that we will see more waves, we will see more cycles. We saw NFTs, they came and went. I think new asset classes will emerge.
Yeah.
But I think crypto will move away from just being a traded asset to being stores of value. One of the most fundamental events will be when and I think we're very close. You know, Bitcoin is the world's most famous cryptocurrency, but there can only be 21 million Bitcoins. The way the blockchain was designed, it was designed to create only 21 million blockchains. And I think in less than 10 years, we will hit that number. I don't think we've hit it yet. So the way Bitcoin was designed is that there were sort of milestones put.
Yeah.
And every time a milestone is hit, the level of complexity doubles. So complexity has doubled as the coins have increased in number. That's what drives up the Bitcoin value, by the way, in addition to trading. Scarcity. Yeah. Because scarcity creates demand. Yeah. And I think that Bitcoin, when we hit the 21 million mark, will now become a store of value. I think that in our lifetime, a Bitcoin will sell for $1 million. Wow. In our lifetime. It might not be in the next 10 years, but I think it will go that high. Wow. Because there's just too much money stuck in there now. I think that given the interconnection between blockchain and the other technologies, because of that fusion, in addition to crypto going mainstream, governments can no longer ignore it. If you think about it, the use case for blockchain in customs is very clear. You will need a crypto asset to settle obligations. Right now, if you're importing, you know, the WTO did a report on this. You know that they one time followed a container from Mombasa to Amsterdam, and they found that it required hundreds of documents that exchange hands in 34 days to move one container of flowers to Amsterdam. Now you can do all of that on computers in a mechanism where you perform, you get paid. You perform, you get paid. It's called a smart contract, where the contract is self-executing. If you put the bill of lading, your money comes. If you put the clearing certificate, your money comes. If you put the commercial invoice at each stage, instead of what we do now, I send money to a dealer in Japan in the hope that I am not sending to a Muyai. Yeah. Then he sends me a bill of lading after 2 weeks. My car is on the water, then it arrives, then I go to Mombasa, then I pay clearing fees before I go, then I get a number plate, then I drive the car, all of that can now happen on the same day in real time. And the mechanism through which you will be settling all of that is a cryptocurrency. So whether it is a government-owned crypto asset, which I think those will emerge, or it is the more trusted assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think crypto is going nowhere.
Wow, wow, wow. Crypto is going nowhere. I think some people should start selling cows and goats and we invest in cryptocurrency. Wow. I think you have hit to the bone. Our listeners were very, very excited and enthusiastic about this topic. I tell you, I received so many inbox messages to this topic. And for me, that takes me to the next thing. When you look at our neighboring countries, a case study is of Kenya. I think 3 weeks ago, the Kenya Insurance Regulatory Authority has passed guidelines for insurance companies to actually do insurance for crypto transactions. When you move down to places like Mauritius, places like Seychelles, they've gone an extra mile. They have tried to put in place guidelines. Locally, we seem to have painted a blind eye, and we seem to have hit a rock. There is a pronouncement by Bank of Uganda. It is buttressed by a court ruling. If you were to meet the President of the Republic of Uganda, and he says, give me advice on cryptocurrency in this country, what would be your advice?
I would urge the president to ask his minders to pass a virtual assets law. And that law should not be targeted on institutions. Don't regulate the company that is doing it. Regulate the asset class. That's what I would do. I would say to the president, do not. First of all, this song and dance between finance, Bank of Uganda, CMA, let us wait. We are waiting on the task force. No, don't touch it. We don't regulate. We don't stop, but we tell you it is not helpful. You need a clear message. I'll tell you, Tony, that in the next 10 years, there will be players in this economy who will deal only in crypto. They will receive payment and pay only in crypto. I once had a client who was trying to send me money, and money wasn't getting through. Until in frustration, she said, do you receive crypto? I said, of course. She said, really? Why did you say that? They never ever paid me in fiat again.
Wow.
When we did the Africa Vision Conference in 2018, our biggest sponsor was Binance. They gave us 5 Bitcoin at the time. 5 Bitcoin then was worth 287 million shillings. We moved that money on a Sunday between 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Why is that significant? Banks were closed, but we had to pay service providers, and we moved 287 million.
Wow.
On a Sunday. I would not want, if I was president of Uganda, I would not want to run an economy where there is money moving that I cannot see. It's a national security issue. One of the most unfortunate things about the July 2010 bombings, you know what it is? There's one question that was never answered. You know that the 2010 bombings, a friend of mine said this to me, a senior colleague of ours in the profession told me, look, 2010 had a higher return per life in terms of investment. The number of lives that were lost, it had a higher return on life than 9/11. Think about that. The terrorists who blew up people at Chadondo rugby ground spent less for more lives than the people who blew up the Twin Towers. Do you know how that money moved?
I have no idea.
Mobile money.
Wow.
It is a national security issue for you to ignore the movement of large sums of money because you don't want to regulate. Let people be transparent. Create incentives. Let the market thrive, then tax them. That is the essence of free market economics. Let people trade. The market will weed out the scammers. You and I are both lawyers. We run 2 separate law firms. You make more money than me.
That's not true, at least for this.
I am not starving.
For this discussion.
Do you know why? There are people who choose between you and me differently.
Yeah.
Some people like you because you're nicer than me. Some people like you because you know things I don't. Some people like you because you know people I don't. It would be silly of me to hate you because you're doing better. Instead, what it does is it causes us to collaborate such that we can both do better. That is the logic of free market economics as I understand it, at its most basic level. So what you do is you create incentives. First of all, so my PhD is on fiscal regime design. How do you design fiscal regimes? And the first thing I argue is that you must decide what are your strategic objectives. What are your strategic choices? Do you want a thriving digital economy or not? You must answer that question. Question one, what are your strategic choices? We were not government officials, we were not ministers, we were not policymakers, and yet we had people from 34 countries in Uganda for 3 days for an event. Because 5 people sitting in a boardroom decided, let's throw a conference, let's make it big. Each of those people paid for a meal, paid for a hotel, bought water, used the taxi, maybe bought a souvenir. That's how you build an economy.
That is powerful. You know, you are a man of many and, many fasts.
Not really, but
You're a man of many fasts. And for me, away from a little bit of crypto, the listeners out there who have come to listen to you, not all of them, by the way, came to listen to crypto. And I want to take you away a little bit. We'll come back to this, don't worry. We remember so well that during the presidential elections, I think they were 2016 presidential elections, where you gave a very resounding submission on amicus curiae.
oh, amicus. Okay.
And you have gone on setting precedents in this country. And some of my listeners, your listeners, others actually inbox and says, we want to come and listen. For me, I am not interested in crypto. But I want that gentleman to tell me, what is the magic? What is that magic stick? A lawyer, including those ones who are going to represent your cryptocurrency clients without deviating. What is that magic? What's that wire and stick which Robert Chirunda uses? That every strike he makes, it leaves a statement, it leaves a precedent. You have just handled the Vantage case, which has moved miles, which is a precedent. At every level, you are setting a precedent. The lawyers know what I'm talking about. What is that magic stick?
Tony, I have a very short answer to that question. I am what I am by the grace of God.
Wow.
It's that simple. I claim no wisdom. I claim no effort. My flaws are more than the world can bear. I am just a guy whom Jesus loved. I am what I am
by the grace of God. So the listeners, whoever God you serve, whoever God you worship to, you need to ask for the same favor. He says is what he is by the grace of God. This show normally runs for 1 hour. But I can tell you, we have run for almost 2 hours. And I warned you on this because normally when the conversation is very exciting, we keep going. But I won't go beyond our bar. The bar, we don't shoot beyond 10. And that's why I'm moving you away from the topic, because I believe you have given us a lot of knowledge. And just a few questions away from the basics, which people would want to, in one or another, learn from you. Um, General question. Last week, we were not able to have our live podcast. I was in the UK for one of their biggest conferences. It's called the Lego Geek Conference. It brings together the whole of Europe and America, over 4,500 participants. But I want to shock you one thing. We were only 2 Africans on that conference.
Wow.
One from South Africa and one from Uganda, who was me. And I want to give credit to Demand Advocacy, sponsored my trip. In that lens, and fostering it on your journey, your exposure, what message would you give, one, to the policymakers with respect to the trends in technology today, 2, to the lawyer practicing today, to the trends in technology today? Because when we are here, Lego Tech Dialogues, we are talking technology. And it's because we limited the topic to crypto, but it's broader. You and me know that. And so I would want you to give that advice from a broader perspective. How should a lawyer prepare himself for what is happening? And how should the policymakers start thinking? Because I was amazed, I was shocked. The kind of discussions people are having, Robert, people are 100 years ahead of us. People, the discussion is different. The conversation is different. And there is no better person to give us an advice from that perspective. 1, because you have studied these things. 2, you have interest in these things. 4, you have practiced these things. Could you advise the policymaker, in your opinion, on how strategic as a country we should be? But also advise, I will not limit to the young lawyer. People have known me for, for talking to the young lawyer. But I'm speaking to the lawyer doing practice in Uganda today. How should he prepare himself in view of what is taking place in the technology world? Over to you.
I'll tell you how I see it, Tony. Before I started my law firm, I scanned the market. And I discovered something. Every generation has its gravy train. From 1900 to today, every generation has had its gravy train.
Yeah.
After the war,
The World War?
no, the 81, 86 Bush War, when the economy was settling down, the first gravy train was expropriated property. A senior lawyer told me once, Kirunda, twatunde nyumba z'abayindi.
Yeah.
And there are lawyers who made tons of money. The Peter Mulira, James Mukasa Senke,
John Kagwa,
the John Kagwas, the James Nangwalas, the Alan Shonobis. They made tons of money.
Yeah.
That was the gravy train from 88 to about 95. Then came privatization. John Katende, Philip Karukaba, Caleb Alaka. He made tons of money. Then Bank of Uganda closed Greenland, ICB and Co. Incidentally, the closure of those banks was recommended by a legal opinion written by the late J.B.B. Amugisha. This is the power of lawyers. Our advice can move a market. Advise the governor, said, you want to bring the financial stability, close these banks. Boom. That portfolio fell straight into Mr. Masembe's lap. He was 28 years old. He knew what to do with it. The rest, as they say. That started perfection. because perfection of securities had started actually with Cooperative Bank. It really hit its peak at the turn of the century. Then came a man called Diox Tibengana. Came back from Apprentice Africa and disrupted perfection. Walked into a bank, got titles, undercut everyone, brought in all the business, made billions of shillings, became a successful property deal. I hope you can see the trend.
I hear you.
Now we are in a democratized space. My very dear brother David Kagwa, he told me when we were talking about oil, there was a time when oil was a craze. But if you study the oil space, you know that exploration, development, production.
Yeah.
Production will plateau after 10 years. Oil money is finished at that point. The money that will be working is what will get from oil and infuse into the other sectors of the economy. But the oil money will be oil will flow for 30 years. That gravy train brought the upmarks of this world. I was talking to a partner at a top-tier firm in London, Magic Circle, and they said, we were on a call in a Magic Circle firm, and a young man called Festus Akunobeda sat on that call. When we finished the call, everyone on the other side in our boardroom, Festus is in Kampala, everyone said, my goodness, what a guy. He was going pound for pound with the smartest players in England, and they allowed he knew what he was talking about. What's my point? I'm trying to make 3 points. One, every generation has its gravy train. No, let me finish the point on David Kagwa. David then says to me in this whole discussion, he says, you know, Robert, I don't like bandwagon effect. And he had chosen to go into construction law. Now, construction law, because of David Kagwa, is a big thing.
Exactly.
Every generation has its gravy train. I genuinely believe that technology is the next, and quite possibly, in my view, the biggest gravy train we're going to see. Because it affects every sphere of society. Every sphere. Directly or indirectly. When we did the Law Meets AI Masterclass last year, my first session was on what is disruption.
Yeah.
Because people need to understand what really is disruption. But we don't have time for that now. But that's the first reason I pay attention. Because for the foreseeable future, I think that technologies are going to emerge at such a fast speed that there will be so much work to do. The second reason is that the questions are so complex that you either know or you don't.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a simple example. Most of our audience know Masavu, a song by Azawi. Azawi sings a beautiful ballad, puts it on the internet. A young man goes, gets the song, uses AI, embeds it with Mose Radio's voice. Mose Radio, may God rest his soul, is now late. The legal question is, does that young man have a right to that work that he can protect? The second question is, can Azawi sue that young man for infringement? Because technically, the young man did not compose the song. No? Azawi did. But also Azawi did not add Moses' voice. The young man did.
Yes.
He didn't add it on his own. He used the tool. This tool,
there's a third party in there.
Is not human, but the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act says an author is a human being.
Yes.
If this dispute were to go to a High Court judge at the commercial division, how would he decide it? If Azawi came to you and said, I want to sue that young man for copyright infringement, how would you advise her?
Complex, because the law talks of a human being.
Now, a young man who used to work for my firm and he's moved on now, God bless his heart, he lives outside the country, sent me, said, I think you might like this, and sent me this AI artist on Spotify.
Yeah.
This is not a human being. There is a persona who has so many songs that have top charts across the world. There are serious property questions here. Is this person cheating genuine artists who put their music on Spotify? There are incentive issues here.
Yeah.
Those are examples of the complex questions that arise in the technology realm. So whether you're advising musicians like Swang's Avenue,
Yeah.
or you're advising constructors like my dear brother David, or you're in the oil game, one of the most interesting things about Uganda's oil industry, by the way, you know that we never used to have internet in national parks.
No.
So one time I asked the ranger, they said, why is the reception so poor? And the guy said to me, Chief, this is Western Uganda. The Congo border isn't too far. I said, so? He said, if we turn on the telecommunications network, how will we know when rebels are communicating? We've had ADF here. One of the ways we keep them at bay is we kill communication. And yet,
Yeah.
to pump oil through that national park to Tanzania, you must track
Yes.
how much oil is flowing, or has the pipe broken somewhere?
Yeah.
Has the pipeline broken somewhere in the national park? What do you need? Sensors. What do sensors use? What do they transmit? Data. What do they use? Signal. Now, if you were UCC's lawyer, advise them, because there's a national security issue and there's an oil issue, and guess what? Your client is neither the UPDF nor the oil company. Your client is the telecommunications regulator, who, by the way, has no mandate to regulate satellites, because you can use the internet via Ethernet cable, you can use the submarine cable, or you can use satellite and uplink, like Starlink. There's another issue. If you let Starlink play in that space, how do you hold them accountable? Who regulates them? That, Tony, is why I'm in technology.
Wow. Wow.
I hope that answers your question.
Oh, surely, yes. You know, it's exactly 9, and I want to just, with one last punching question, it's a common question here. And
before we go to that, my point on the policy side, my advice to policymakers would be, if we run a liberalized current account, if we say we are an open economy, let us build a genuinely free market. Technology liberates commerce. Does it have risks? Yes. Guess what? The internet wouldn't be what it is today without pornography. Do we all pride ourselves in pornography? Of course not. Those who enjoy it for whatever reason they do. But the internet we use today would not be what it is without the dark web, where most of the crimes happen, without pornography. My point being, sometimes the things that scare you the most give you the highest benefit. Focus on the good. If we want to build a genuinely free market, we should write policies that are clear and communicate that Uganda is open for business, and then we will attract capital. Do we need safeguards? Yes, we do. But we design those safeguards bearing in mind that what we want to do is attract, not restrain capital. That is what I would tell policymakers. And if you're going back to your earlier question, that's what I would tell the president, if I may.
wow. You have actually told the policymakers. Not what you would tell. I will tell you this.
Now the parting question.
The parting question. Normally, my team there requests me to ask you one question, and that question is, what is that thing we do not know about you? The world knows you in all aspects, but what is that thing that when you sit back and say, by the way, I think the world does not know me, does not know Robert Chirunda.
I am an open book, and I think all my secrets are out there for the world to read. But I'll tell you one that I think many people don't know. When I was admitted to campus, initially, I was admitted to pursue MDD on government sponsorship. That I'm sure many people don't. Going by the reaction in the room, there was
including myself.
No.
And I thought we were friends. So those of you who never knew,
Bobby Wine would have been my classmate.
Wow.
Maybe
wow.
I would now be friends with what's this gentleman's friend? Nubian Lee. Who knows? I've never met Nubian Lee, by the way. But
You need to pursue that career. The last time I checked, you had, you know, I think you had featured in a song, and and it was a hit, at least for 1 week or so.
Let's move
So,
on.
you know, thank you very much, Robert. It's always a pleasure. You know, Robert is one person I've always called at short notice, and he will turn up. And I don't take that for granted. I want to put it down to the public that I have friends and there are people I know who stand by their word, and Robert, you're one of them. When Robert says I will come, he will surely come. If he's not able to come, he will communicate. And I think I envy you.
I am grateful to you.
And thank you for being who you are. And I'm sure that's the reason you attract a lot of audience. This listenership is normally big, and I believe it is. I also want to give you the flowers that you deserve. Not when you are dead, which is characteristic of us. Robert, you have shaped the narrative of technology in this country. And I would, without reservation, say that, Robert, in my thinking and my understanding, you are the grandfather of Lego technology. We can have a broader perspective where we have the Professor Bariam Revas and so on. But when we speak about policy, when we speak about, you know, Prof will handle the technical bit of it. But we are talking about thought leaders. We are talking about people who are influencing policies, people who are putting up their heads and say, wait a minute, this is what's happening. And I think for me, I want to thank you on behalf of the listeners and on behalf of Ugandans who are benefiting from this. You know, not long ago, Professor Bitangen Demo put up his head as a thought leader. And because of that decision, we are able to enjoy the fiber internet here with
Brilliant man.
Yeah. So I really want to thank you. As Lego Tech Dialogues, I also want to thank my team, my co-host Elizabeth Maria Nampima, and the broadcast team, Drake, Aziz, and everybody. I want to thank you very much.
Tony, thank you very, very much for having me. It's always fun having these conversations with you. It really is.
Thank you.
I think that I am not the grandfather of legal tech. I think there are other equally helpful voices.
Unfortunately, you can't name one, so we'll leave it at that. And being a lawyer, since you cannot be able to support your submission,
I think that to mention some of the people that have done really well in this space, I mean, you have Silva Kayondo, Ken Muhanji, Alice Namuri, Linda. I think it's been a collective effort, but I'm grateful for the role that I've been able to play.
Thank you.
And we continue doing the best we can.
Thank you very much, listeners. That brings us to the end of our podcast today, and we look forward to next week, same time. We will communicate if it is going to be physical, but keep listening. Some of the questions I will forward them to Robert to answer them. We have a category of them. If we are to answer all these questions, trust me, you will not finish up today. Thank you very much for listening in. And before we close out, I would want to request my co-host. We have a humble gift we give our guests. Humble. So I would want to request my co-host, Liz, to kindly pull over and do the honors to hand over our humble gift.
Wow. You didn't tell me. You didn't warn me to prepare.
Great. Wow. Certificate of appreciation presented to Robert Chirunda in appreciation of serving as speaker at the 4th episode of Legotech Dialogues podcast on navigating the void, can Ugandans safely trade crypto in a regulatory vacuum? Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you again. Thank you, and thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. Too much for me. You know those days how they would bend down and enough. You have decided to deny him the cup for alone.